I recently talked to JG from the Beyond Our Money YouTube channel, and we had a fascinating discussion about all things Palantir, and being both shareholders of the company and interested in the future of what they can provide the world. We got to talking about some of the potential threats to the business, and Elon Musk's Neuralink came up. So in this video, I want to pull a few clips from the conversation, because I think we had a very interesting back and forth about what Neuralink and Palantir really mean, how they might even work together in the future, and what their individual technologies stand for. So I'm going to go ahead and play a few clips, as I said, and I'll be back at the end for some closing thoughts.
When I first started covering Palantir, I said that I see Palantir eventually scaling to consumers. And I get a lot of questions like, what kind of product can they offer consumers? And my response to that was always like something like Neuralink, whether it be wearable or something that's implanted, but something like Neuralink, because that's their entire vision, right? Like, how do we merge humans with artificial intelligence to augment human intelligence? Because that's kind of the idea. Like, how do we partner humans and artificial intelligence? They don't believe that artificial intelligence alone can be successful, not in the short term, as a lot of people seem to believe, where artificial intelligence is going to completely replace a human being and be 100 times better than anything that we can do in the near future. And that they're kind of like working on the assumption that that's not going to happen in the near term. So the best thing to do is to merge the two. So to me, like, the logical step for Palantir is when they do get to, if they do get to a consumer product, that would be some kind of consumer product that would merge with humans to augment their intelligence. That's their whole vision, right? Augmenting human intelligence. So if they do get to that point, then I see Neuralink as being the threat, because that's basically what Neuralink is. The founding of Neuralink isn't like, to help with paralysis and things like that, which is something that it can do. But the reason why Elon Musk decided to work on Neuralink is because he sees artificial intelligence as an existential threat to humanity. So he has this whole thing of like, well, if you can't beat them, join them. The best thing that we can do is merge humans with artificial intelligence to give them some kind of competitive edge. That's kind of like where that comes from, because I've been asked a lot lately, like, who do you think are Palantir's competitors, or what's the downside to Palantir? Well, the number one thing is, like, if they're wrong about this AI, their entire business model is being built on that assumption that AI cannot really be functional on its own. Therefore, the best way to move forward in business is to couple AI with humans. If they're wrong about that assumption, like say Google ends up developing an artificial intelligence like a AGI that actually does the job better than the human, then there goes their entire business model, right? But if they are right, so who in the industry is working in something like this? Well, the only company that I can see that is working in something similar to this, and I think they're kind of ahead in the game, is Neuralink, because they're already working to like provide you with a consumer product, right? Like, this is something that every individual can merge with AI. It's not for businesses or anything like that. It's pretty huge. So it's very ambitious. It's a little bit scary. I don't know if it will be successful. I don't know that it will be successful. It will eliminate the way we type, when you can just think an email and things like that, like it will eliminate a lot of things. So Neuralink is already working towards what Palantir could potentially, I'm making the assumption that Palantir does want to create products for consumers. That's an assumption I'm making because that's something that they've never talked about. But if they do, that, to me, that's like the most logical conclusion, that they will create something that merges with humans, that merges humans and AI, because that's their whole business model.
I think Neuralink is more going after the interface right now for how are they going to commercialize this? How is this going to become a reality? They've got the scientists, they've got the robots, at least they showed some of that a few years ago in their presentations, how they would actually get the chip inside the brain. It's like micro insertions or whatever, a computer chip in the brain. And you need another layer on top of that, which is the actual software, the firmware. What they've showed is something that will interact with the phone through the Neuralink. There is potentially a way that the Neuralink can exist and be widely adopted, and Palantir kind of sits on top of that for whatever software that they bring to a wider market. They're going to have their hands full with scaling and iterating on Foundry and Gotham over the next 5 years. But I think potentially before the end of the decade, they could, as you're saying, get down to a consumer product once they've capitalized off of the government and the enterprise work. And I think once they're a big enough company, they've got enough engineers that they will have had enough experience, and they'll still have ambition to expand into a consumer product. So whether that's them being their own implant device, I'm not sure if that's what they're interested in. I think Neuralink's kind of going to have the stranglehold on the market for implanting. Elon Musk is an innovative person magnet, so I'm sure he's taken the best of the best when it comes to the scientists and the people involved with getting that into people's brains and working on the robots. And interfacing with the brain, understanding the brain, and what engineering is involved with that. Palantir would be behind at that point. They're definitely a software company. They would want to be a layer on top of the Neuralink. Do you agree with my take on maybe Palantir could interface with the Neuralink if that is really going to become a reality in the future? Or do you think they would have to develop their own solution?
Any like potential product that they can offer will really strain their resources, whether it be manpower, engineers, and so on. They think through what they want to release and how long they're going to execute in those areas before they move on to like the next product. With the interface, I don't know if the like Neuralink, Elon Musk would trust like the software portion of what he's trying to accomplish with Neuralink to another company. I think Elon Musk holds that portion of the business really close to the chest. I think like interface or anything like that, that's something that Elon Musk would take on for the company, because that's really where like the potential growth is for the company and where the company's going to go in the future.
Maybe just kind of thinking back to Steve Jobs and the iPhone. I know that he initially did not want an app store on the iPhone, and that meant was Apple was going to have to develop all of their own applications, and that puts a lot of strain on the development team, but also really limits the use of the device. It's an interesting question because I think there really would have to be third-party applications or whatever you want to call implementations on Neuralink's platform. I understand your point about it being completely different from like iOS or Android because it's in your brain, but they could definitely be some advanced precautions in place for that to make sure that nothing goes wrong, or maybe it's too hard. For what Neuralink is going after, just think about all the ways that we interface with our devices today. It's web, it's specific applications. I don't think Neuralink themselves would be able to code all of that, whether it's maybe just an extension on top of Neuralink's platform. But I think there could be a way for Palantir, like we know they're very focused on privacy and security, get a piece of the Neuralink platform.
I hear you on that. And I think that like, for me, it makes sense. Like if you're going to choose a company that is going to take care of your interface, then you want the company that their sole purpose is to create the best interface between human and artificial intelligence. You want a company that the most secure company out there when it comes to the information and data that they gather and so on, which all of this is, to your point, things that Palantir has an advantage in. So that makes sense to me. And yeah, absolutely. I think that can definitely happen. And I think you are right that like Neuralink right now is more focused on developing the hardware, and they will have to have like a third-party interface. To me, it would make the most sense, especially if I'm saying like this is something that Palantir can provide. The direction that I think Palantir would eventually go to if they decide to provide consumer products, it makes sense that Palantir, like that totally makes sense. It's my point. Like I think that you are right that Palantir can do this. The biggest hurdle that I see that they would have to jump, the fact that they're working with the government, just people having an issue with like, wait, I'm going to implant a chip on my brain that is being monitored. The interface in that chip is with a company that works so closely with the government. From that standpoint, I see that being a huge hurdle that Palantir would have to jump. And those are the downsides that I see for Palantir. So it's their government work, as good as it can be for them, it's going to create a barrier for many different types of customers.
And Palantir putting out consumer products on the Neuralink platform is probably not something that either of these businesses are thinking about. And I think it's going to be up to them to prove they have the right intentions and show what they stand for, be on the Neuralink platform eventually, or any sort of consumer products, because I think there is a lot of skepticism usually whenever the government's involved with something. It's like, well, what could go wrong here? So I think this whole discussion around Neuralink is fascinating. Not something we're going to see the light of day for 10 or 15 years,
Absolutely.
But Palantir is going to be pushing for that amount of time. So
yeah, man. Even Neuralink is going to have quite some challenges even getting to market.
There is definitely a lot of culture that aligns between those two, the human and AI symbiosis. That could be a reason. Maybe they work together in the future, but I do think having definitely that culture aligning is a positive sign.
Yeah, and one more thing, man. Even the SpaceX working with NASA and all of that. So Elon Musk is not opposed to working with the government, and that's a lot of government work right there. So there are connections there, man, and I do see it, and we'll see. But I think that's far ahead of the future.
So I thought that was a very interesting discussion, especially around Neuralink, considering their product is still quite far from being commercialized, but we still had some interesting thoughts about the future of their platform. And if you're interested, the full hour-long podcast is up on JG's channel. I'll link that in the description. I just thought this would be something interesting to share, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Palantir and Neuralink would be the sort of companies to work together given their culture on uniting humanity and artificial intelligence and the whole symbiosis there? So share your thoughts in the comments. Until next time.